Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. Today we got John Delarose on us. He's the most trusted name in comics news, and you can tell it because it says it right there, right underneath.
Right there.
So yeah. John was rushing home from the doctor's office. Like O.J. Simpson in the airport, making sure that he was here on time. So congratulations. Thank you.
I did it on time streams. I really didn't think I'd be able to, but yes.
Yeah, we were prepared. So thanks a lot for that. I hope I didn't cause any problems, any drama in speeding tickets. So first off, let's start with the elephant in the room. I created some drama with John a couple of weeks ago, and I since apologized because I was being a hothead. So I apologize to you face to face in person.
My memory is so bad, I don't remember.
Oh, so, you're a gentleman. Gentleman and a scholar.
What were we talking about at that point?
I got all hot and bothered about the Dice Tower. I consider those guys
the Dice Tower.
Yeah.
I used to be big fans of the Dice Tower. I really was. And I was actually a very big fan. I'd back their Kickstarters for their deal every year just to support their channel. And I was very involved. At one point, I almost had Eric Summerer doing a audiobook for one of my novels.
Oh, cool.
And I was close with him. He was on the Dice Tower radio, like sort of podcast deal.
He's their voice over guy.
Yeah. And then things kind of started getting weird in the board game industry. Naturally, I become more of a name, where people know me from my journalism and all that. And that causes problems for these people. So I got involved with some of the board gaming drama, and it's been a while since I've this is
old school stuff.
This is old school stuff.
Out of nowhere because I'm a lunatic.
The first time I got involved with the board gaming drama, are you a big board gamer?
Yeah, you can see behind
the yes, you know all the things. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I've been to the Dice Tower. I've been to the Dice Tower conventions 5 times. I backed their Kickstarters. I've had Tom Vassell on my channel. I've had
cool. Well, you can talk to him and tell him to stop being a dick to me. For social justice clout.
Well, I'll say this: they did a purge. They got rid of all SJWs.
That's what you told me, but that doesn't mean I've been kind of like, hey, John, I'm sorry. The problem is like. This is always what happens with social justice. You let these people into your organizations. You eventually have to cut your DEI department or whatever the hell you're doing in that because they don't actually add any value. They detract value. They make you lose revenue every single time. And then the cuts happen. But do they go back and apologize to the people that they stepped on along the way?
This
Never.
Is my theory, and I base it just on how well I know these guys, is that Tom's group is the number one. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, first I'll start. It's a Dice Tower. It's the biggest board game channel on YouTube. And Tom Vassell has the distinct crime of being a Christian homeschooler with 7 kids. And he's white. And everybody who works for the Dice Tower was white with the exception of one. So he got piled on by all the social justice people in the board gaming industry. And I think, based on what I know of the man, I have always, he just was terrified of losing everything. And I think he knuckled under without any maliciousness. I think he thought it would go away. He thought okay, if I give them this, they'll leave me alone. And this has been happening since 2015. So it just
keeps escalating because they keep demanding more and more and more and more.
Right now,
this is exactly, this is my entire reason for being here as a journalist in all these industries, is the fact that that's what they do. And so once you learn this and once you get canceled, like I have, your perspective changes on this stuff and you realize you either fight or you die. And that's
absolutely.
And so Tom Vassell, obviously didn't, and I agree with you. I don't think it was malicious at the time. And then, unfortunately, they got to him. And
absolutely.
I have about as much respect for people that bow to this pressure, because look, at the end of the day, you're bowing to evil. If you might be a Christian homeschool guy yourself, but if you're out there going to promote the trans agenda on your channel or whatever, then you got it, right?
Agenda stuff. But
it was gay stuff, right?
I think
you see the gays end up on his channel, right?
They would leave him alone, and then I don't know what happened. Maybe about 2 years ago, he purged all of those people. He deleted all these videos, and I'm not saying that.
I hope he's back on track, and
he's
that's
back
great.
on track. Yes,
and
everybody who works for
that's fantastic. Yeah. My problem is what happened is the reason I got involved in this. The first time I got involved in board gaming stuff, I was a board gamer forever. So I wrote a novel based on the Star Realms card game.
Oh, cool. That's
And
a good game.
it's a tie into that. And I worked for Deadlands Doomtown, the RPG, because they did a card game also, and I did all for that card game.
That game is beyond me to play, man. Talk about a heavy rule set.
Like a really heavy rule. I loved it. The strategy's out of control in it. And
man, you want to beat me in 5 minutes? Play Deadlands.
So I was involved in that, and I've written for some other RPGs also. And so that's kind of where I was in the space, and I'm a just big board gamer just with my kids, because it's one of the few hobbies you can do with your family that like you're not going to expose them to weird shit, because it's just
and that's why they needed to come after the Dice Tower.
That's right, and I noticed that there were at conventions and the like, these weirdos were trying to make it less of a family space and turning it into their little identity orgies that they do everywhere, right? And so I started calling it out in journalism at that time. What happened, the first instance of this that I recall, Larry Correia, who writes the Monster Hunter International books, got banned from Origins Game Fair. Now, they were launching a Monster Hunter's RPG book, and so I covered that. And I also covered the Quartering back when he was a Magic the Gathering channel. And I covered the fact that they deleted his account, got rid of all of his online stuff, which is again, buy physical media, because he had thousands and thousands of dollars of online Magic cards.
Fortune on cards, and then the company deleted his cards that he paid for. Did they reimburse him for that?
Never,
for the
no.
Absolutely.
They just called him names and told him he's banned from everything, right?
Yep.
And so I covered both of those, and that was basically it. And so, of course, I was running afoul of the SBJWs in the industry at that point, in the board game industry. And then people started to come to me for the stories, because I was the only one who would report on these. Nobody else would ever cover these. And I started covering a few instances of these board game designers who were getting harassed and banned as non-diverse and all this crap. And the one I came up with that was big was one called TGG Games. Now, TGG Games made a book called like Bass Tournament Fishing or something like that. And it was just a deck builder game, very, very simple. And it was about catching fish. So about as innocuous as you could get, you think.
Right. I was going to say this has got to be the safest topic ever.
Well, the cover of the rule book had a frog, and it did this.
Oh, so therefore the Nazis.
And therefore they're Nazis, because the frog is a classic symbol of the Pepe, which is the Trump. And this means white Oren? Power. What's that?
Do you know Rob Oren?
Yes.
Yeah, he wore a Pepe the Frog shirt because he thinks it's funny.
It's funny. Yes.
This is like a 70-year-old man who just plays solo board games, and that's his whole channel. He wore a Pepe, and they tried to cancel this guy, and you could tell it really hurt his feelings. Poor guy.
Yeah.
Another guy I met.
Well, this happened. I reported on it. I stood with these guys because obviously it was bullshit. And then they started working to maybe even because they got kicked out of it's called the Game Manufacturers Association, GAMA.
Yeah.
And that group kind of like is a little whisper network within board games. And it's controlled by a couple people, like Rodney Smith's a big one in there, and he's a big woke loser. He's one of the biggest assholes out there. And then
he asked me my opinion on something, and I gave him my opinion, and he told me, I invite you to never interact with me again.
That's funny.
I was like, okay, yeah. And nothing of value was lost.
And so he was involved in all that stuff. And then another group got canceled, a YouTube group, a beautiful couple who are friends of mine. Ant Lab Games.
Yeah.
Ant-Man? Ant-Man Games, yes. Ant Lab Games, they got canceled because the woman basically said, hey, there's a lot of drunk people or whatever at nights at things like Gen Con or whatever. And, you just need to be careful as a woman not to do something, don't go out in a very, very short skirt and no underwear alone, into alleys and, saying things like that are pretty standard common sense.
Be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah. And and everybody's like, you're victim blaming rape culture. And I'm dead serious. So at this point, anybody, the main website that everybody goes to is Board Game Geek at this point. And I was on Board Game Geek, and I just said, hey, this lady's just like, being nice. Like, there's nothing. I just said that. They banned me from Board Game Geek.
I made one post on Board Game Geek, and I was deleted, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
My very first post. I wish I could remember what it was, but I'm not even joking. That's how bad Board Game Geek. I use Board Game Geek every day because I got over 1,000 board games.
The problem is it's the most comprehensive log of the. So if you want to log all your games and the like, that's the spot you have to go.
I played a game Monday and we had a rules question, so I type it in. It comes up Board Game Geek. It answers the question, but I will not use their forums ever.
But their forums are just filled with the nut jobs.
Yep.
And so all these things were all happening at once. And then this lady, Suzanne, got in at the Dice Tower. And this Suzanne lady was actively pushing social justice stuff. She was canceling people left and right, trying to get them fired from board game companies. Sometimes it would work. And they came after a gal named Sarah Shaw, who's Puffendor on Twitter. And they came after her because she was too pro-Palestine or something like that, because she's a Muslim. And I'm like, and I thought it was funny. I'm like, haha, they're literally going at somebody because they're a Muslim, with so much for diversity, right? And I talked to Sarah, and it turned out these people were going after them regularly. And so at that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to war with the woke board game industry, just like I'm at war with the woke comic industry, the woke sci-fi. It's all the same sort of tent. We all kind of. You like comics and board games, so do I, right? And so it's very much there's a lot of crossover in this stuff. And so I'd start writing articles and doing videos just covering these wokeites just causing problems in board games. And at that point, I ran afoul of these people. I joined the GAMA, Game Manufacturers Association, and I just said, hey, I'm looking at doing some card games based on my comic books, maybe. And I really want to. I love board games. I've been working in the industry and I just made a nice post. Rodney Smith went and wrote this night letter about how I'm a racist, sexist Nazi, and got me banned from the GAMA organization. So I reported on that too. And then I was in the Dice Tower group, as I was for a long time, and they banned me from there. Yeah. And I'm like, Tom, what the heck's going on? I'm just posting about board games. Wow, you're controversial. I'm like, that's not fair. I should be able to just play board games like anybody else.
I'm not going to defend that. I'm just going to say he was terrified that's what they do. They terrify you.
This is what they do. They terrify you into doing this stuff. And I'm just like, okay. At the same time, Tom canceled a guy named Robert Burke, who made a game called The Silver River, which is a pretty good sci-fi game if you've not seen that too.
There. I got it right there.
Yeah, good game.
And the art game about the Nazis, stealing.
I have that too. Yeah, that they tried to cancel that too. And then Tom refused to cover the Silver Rivers expansion and do any reviews of it, telling that guy he was too controversial. And that guy's like, well, wait a minute, you just had Eric Lang on your channel to derp about his politics. That's controversial.
Did you see that video?
Yeah. Oh, is it disaster?
That was the definition of a struggle session.
It was terrible. And that's the one thing that's what made me lose respect for Tom at that point, is that he canceled Robert Burke, who's a good guy, conservative guy, Christian guy, and just wouldn't even and just basically, if you can't get coverage on the Dice Tower, your game's sunk. I mean, this is just how it goes. And yet he's promoting this other guy just because. Why? Because he's got a little political clout. Because Eric Lang, the only reason Eric Lang has jobs is because he's black and he complains about it. Let's be honest. He just copies other people's game mechanics. He's a hack. You suck, Eric Lang. Thank you.
I've met Eric Lang. I've played games with Eric Lang. This is really. And the funny thing is, my wife, who's also Canadian, who is the sweetest woman you'll ever meet, she whispered into you, I don't like this guy. He's phony. And at the time, I was all stars in my eyes going, no, be quiet. I must have 7 pictures of me, Tom, and Suzanne hanging out, and then
wow.
Because that's how often I went to all of these events and everything. And then
I was in those events too, so I probably ran into you at a Gen Con too back then.
He's the absolute worst. And I me, I try to not be controversial on my channel, but he is the worst. He is a two-faced. I think he's the one who invented that term sea lying. And I was just like, sea lying, and I was like, oh, so basically any defense of an argument is sea lying, whatever it's sea lying. And what what I'm talking about. And therefore you don't have to, you could just dismiss any of arguments that you don't like. I don't like that.
These people went at me hard. And then I noticed there was another trend happening in board game reviewers that women were getting into this on Instagram, like posing with like low cut shirts and holding up the board game. And of course, they were getting, tens of thousands of followers for, just
And do
basically
that with
like
anything. Yeah.
doing a half, a half OnlyFans, right?
Yeah.
And so we're making fun of it, and I was making fun of it with Sarah Shaw because, of course, as a Muslim, she wouldn't do that. She's very fully covered all the
Well,
time.
everybody has to. Sarah
Yeah,
Shaw is like the sweetest, nicest
sweet
person.
gal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've interacted with
she
her.
would never do anything like that. She's a classy gal, right? And so we're making fun of it. And I said, I'm fighting with these people already. They just kicked me out of Gamma. They kicked me out of the Dice Tower. They kicked me out of Board Game Geek. And I said, you know what, Sarah, I'm gonna do a video, and you watch. This is gonna be like my most viral video. I'm gonna do the top 5 hottest board game reviewers. I didn't know who any of these people were. Sarah pointed me to a couple of the Instagram e-thoughts, and so I added them on the list. And then naturally, I added the gal from Ant Lab Games because she's my pal, and so is her husband. And then I added Sarah because Sarah's my pal, right? And then I added the gal from the Dice Tower who was she had just joined at the time, and I don't even remember her name. Camilla, yes, that's right. Because she's just a sweet stay-at-home mom type of girl too, and so it's like I wanted to contrast the e-thoughts to that, and so I had a clickbait title, and I was super nice about it, and I was like, look, she seems like a sweet Christian girl, and Tom threw a fit. And he said it was the most offensive thing he's ever seen, ever. And I'm dead serious. I'm like, really? And everybody at the Dice Tower was so offended. I'd never be welcome to anything again. And then he personally banned me from the Dice Tower West convention, saying that I am not welcome at any table around the Dice Tower.
That was one of Camilla's things when she got hired. Is she doesn't want to have any attention to her looks or body,
Oh well.
And so I'll say it at the risk of being. I think she's a very attractive woman. So you know what I mean.
Beautiful.
So I'll watch their events live, and there's a lot of how it is on the internet. A lot of comments are kind of scummy. You know what I mean? And,
yeah, and I actually was pretty. I'm
not saying you are. I wasn't.
I'm a Christian guy, so I was very tame about this.
Yeah.
I was just pointing out the kind of natural things on this level. And of course, it did go viral. I got tens of thousands of clicks on that. I mean, you just do that, and it's amazing. And so I made my money off of it. But I'm really just disappointed in Tom because he's, like I said, he canceled Robert Burke. He canceled me. He bowed to these people. And so at that point, I'm just like, you know what, Tom, obviously the Dice Tower is an anti-Christian organization at this point. If the people who get banned from your stuff are the conservative Christians who are vocal about it. So I'm just going to call you out on that. And I just made it my mission to, and it's intentional because look, they've got the mainstream media. They've got everybody in the artistic industry on every industry. So my mission at this point is to apply social pressure the other way. And this goes for comics, science fiction, whatever, all the things in nerddom, geekdom, whatever you want to call it. My goal is to apply pressure the opposite direction so that, at least there's some sort of balance and that it hopefully ends cancel culture at the end of the day. And that's my entire mission at this point. And, Tom Vassal's frankly one of the large reasons I am in this space doing that. So
I don't. Yeah, I just think he succumbed to pressure. And now, I think the Dice Tower is standing on its own without Eric Langs and all. He excised all that people. I mean, they're all Christian preachers, homeschoolers. So I would.
He should. In theory, the guy should be on my side. That's annoying to me.
Yes, I do think it's a weakness because he succumbed to a difficult pressure,
Yeah. So that's the story behind that. 20 minutes later.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. So yeah, you have you jammed any comics up your butt lately? Anything?
Jeez, that's you who was told to do that.
I know.
That was really funny. So one thing I like to do again, like if you look at the way that the mainstream media operates, they source each other as experts. So you'll go into a New York Times article and they'll be like, John Scalzi, the prolific science fiction author, says this about science, right? And so I figure again, it's kind of my duty to do that the opposite way around. So when I see somebody like Fabian Nicieza, who's a comic artist of big fame, telling you to jam a comic up your butt because he doesn't like your perceived politics, which you didn't even go hard politics on him, really.
No.
Just because he kind of knows, wait a minute, you're one of the others. Like he othered you.
Well,
I'm going to report on that, and then I'm going to hopefully get some attention for you on that. In addition,
and you were the only one who mentioned me by name. Other people talked about it for a week. Not like you could say, "Hey, John Longbox," you linked to my. So you did the right thing.
The whole point is to get you like some clicks off of that, right? That's what I figured.
Yeah, thank you. That's why I'm laughing. You're the only one. Everybody else focused on Fabian. It's like, what about me? I got a comic book up my butt. A treasury size too. So
and we'll use Fabian's name in order to get people to click, but then the goal is to get people to click to you because you do good work on this channel. And it's really weird to me. He's talking to you like that, but he was just on your channel, like being super nice to you like a week before that. Like
he was a little. Yeah. We had a nice long talk, and you could see about halfway through he started to realize, oh my God, this guy probably disagrees with me about something.
Oh no.
But what he said was he said Gina Carano got what she deserved. So I said,
terrible.
I played a little dumb, and I said, I don't follow Star Wars, which I don't. What exactly did she say? Fabian says, I don't know, but it was probably something anti-Semitic, anti-transphobic. So I said, so you don't know what she said, but you know she got what she deserved. And that's it. I had a whole long tirade, and I cut it down thinking just one sentence perfect. Let him give him enough rope. You know what I mean? And that's what he did. He goes, I knew you were painting this. Why don't you take a comic stick? So, okay, so how about if you don't know what somebody says, you keep your mouth shut, or you learn about it and then make a comment. But
it's gone further than guilt by association, which is bad enough as it is. It's gone to guilt by identity, right? And so if your identity doesn't check all the boxes at this point, you're guilty. And it's really sick. And actually the people mainly hit by this are, of course, white males more than anybody else. So it's like you're not allowed to have any opinion ever. And that's just kind of how it goes. It's really sad to watch these people act like this. But at the end of the day, like, it does give opportunity for people like us to go out and talk about it. And of course, draw attention to our channels and our art. And hopefully we are, going to be on our way up here. I mean, it sure seems like it.
I wanted to ask you, because I know you were watching, but I don't think you commented, with Rich Johnson, everybody's favorite comic book journalist.
My buddy.
Yeah, your buddy, right? You and him hang out like skipping to the loo. But he reported maybe a month or so ago about Jim Hanley's universe shutting down, and he said it was due to high rent. So he's a comic book journalist, so I asked him. I said, "How many stores on that block went out of business due to the high rent?" And he says, "I don't know."
Just the comic book shop.
I said, the high rent only affects comic book stores. I said, at what point can we admit that comic books are having problems? So he tells me the comic books are doing fine because of Dogman. So I said, oh, man, if only we had told Jim Hanley's universe to sell Dogman, then he would still be in business.
Right.
So he, and I foolishly argued with them all night long.
He's super disingenuous and always has been. So there's
2
no
months
point.
later, he posts an article about a store at Richmond Hill, Queens that went out of business, a bakery that was there for 40 years. And the guy says the rent was too high. So I said, Richard Johnson, I think you're an Englishman, right? But Richmond Hill, Queens is nowhere near Jim Hanley's universe. They're not even on the same island. I know you think that United States is a gigantic continent, but they are in 2 different islands. So I said, you can't even cherry pick well, and that, so then whatever. So Jim Hanley's universe went out of business because Jim Hanley didn't sell Dogman. But at least I got him to admit he wasn't a journalist.
Yeah, he will always admit he's not a journalist. So I mean, Rich Johnson, he runs Bleeding Cool.
Yes,
people don't know. And he has for a long time, and he's one of the biggest scumbags out there. He really is just a slimy person on every single level. There's not many people I really say that with that I say are like irredeemable type people, but he really is.
If disingenuousness had a face, it would be Rich Johnson.
Yes.
Hey, MSK, how you doing? Oh, it's funny. I just realized
there's John and John. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I all of a sudden I was like, hey, how did that change? Hanley told the Trumpers not to shop. Well, how'd that work out for him?
Yeah.
How'd that work out for him? Too many people there with the same names. Yes. And I've been to Jim Hanley's universe. Jim Hanley, for those of you who don't know, he ran a comic book store that he was the first comic book seller, not artist, not original art seller, but he was like the first retail guy to become a millionaire off of comic books. This was a guy who ran a tight ship. He opened up a store in every borough in Manhattan. And when his stores closed down, this was the guy that when I worked in my comic book store with my buddy, we would go to lectures from Jim Hanley, how to run a comic book store. He was, the man, the expert. And now his stores are closed. But if only he sold Dog Man.
If only he sold Dog Man.
He made one tactical error, and that cost him his business.
What's interesting is there has been a shift in the mainstream narrative over the last. Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate you linking.
Yeah, Marcus is a great moderator.
Yeah.
And me and Marcus got our first hater today, so that's
nice.
Yeah.
We're going up. The deal here is like they used to for years just hold that line. There's nothing wrong with the comic industry, and they'd gaslight everybody about things. Finally, over the last 6 months, I've noticed a shift where they are admitting there are things wrong with the comic book industry. I wrote about Chip Zdarsky's interview about this because I found all these guys at Marvel now are doing these interviews for their products on YouTube channels that get we're at 17 viewers right now, so please hit that like and subscribe button, everybody. But I noticed they get like 5 viewers in their chat, and it's like Chip Zdarsky. It's really weird. And they just go around this circuit of people where you think they'd be on bigger channels talking about things.
I invite everybody.
They're scared.
Everybody, and I invited.
Maybe they're not that scared of you yet. So
I invited Jim McCrea, and me and him was scheduled up. John McCrea, rather. We scheduled it. He drew Hitman comics. Yeah. He drew the Demon comics. He was all ready to come on, and then when I went to send him the invite, I was blocked. So somebody told him.
Wow, somebody got to him.
Yeah,
and that's what's going to happen when you talk to the wrong people. Like, you're not allowed to talk to me and talk to Gail Simone, for example. It's like
I'd talk to Gail Simone.
It's really ridiculous.
I would talk to Gail Simone.
Actually. You wouldn't?
I would love to have her on.
You would?
And have an honest conversation. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna.
Yeah,
she comes on my channel and I insult her. I don't do that, but I would have an honest conversation.
I actually talked to her behind the scenes. She's more of she is a social media guru who really intentionally trolls.
Yes.
And is good at it. And behind the scenes, she's actually super sweet, I've noticed. So, but she's also done the Whisper Network stuff too. But thank you, Cam. I really appreciate it. You enjoyed Overmind. Yeah. Overmind's fantastic. And we're actually just wrapping up getting book 2 done of this. So we're hoping as soon as
if Cam says it's good, it's good. Cam and I grew up together, and this. As much as I pretend to know about comic books, Cam knows even more. So if Cam says it's good, it's good.
Thank you. So book 2 will probably launch around this summer sometime. So yeah. It's a you're not allowed to associate kind of vibe, but they do. There's certain channels these guys all go on to, and I'm always like, why? Like why is the entire Whisper Network all going onto this channel, and all these there's like 4 or 5 of them I found, and they make a little circuit of them, and they all get 5-10 views, and nobody's watching. It's like, why are you even doing the interview at that point?
Right.
So I've actually ended up going in this guy's chat a bit, and I start talking in there, and the guy's not banned me from his chat yet, and I've just been respectful. But I asked Chip Zdarsky, hey, the retailer talked about self-inserts ruining the comic book industry and causing problems. What do you think about that? And he dodged the question. He goes, well, I'm Chip Zdarsky. There's no Chip Zdarsky in my Batman. I'm like, okay. And then he goes, he actually says, yeah, there's a lot of problems with the comic book industry. So I have my article right there. At that point, Chip Zdarsky says there's a lot of articles in the problems of the comic book industry. But he said that he then passes the buck, and he it's like they won't self-reflect. There's a hold on.
What you said.
Let me find this.
There's a July on my channel, and I had EVS on my channel, and I got minor night letters from people. How could you have this guy? How could you have that? And I'm like, I'll have both. We're talking about comic books here. Both of them are comic book people, whether you like them or not.
There's this is oh gosh, I don't want a membership of Medium. Is this going to pull this up? Okay. So this came from Andy Grove back in the day. Andy Grove was one of the founders of Intel, the computer processing company, and of course, Intel is one of the biggest computer chip companies in the world. They built themselves from nothing, big deal. And Andy Grove was a complete genius, and I'm sharing my screen right now. And this is illustrative. He has a book on management, and this is Marvel Comics needs to read this for sure. And they have the 5 stages of problem solving. And so this is where we're at right now, guys. So the first stage is ignore, right?
Right.
And that's what they did. They ignored Comicsgate. They ignored all the fans. They just they blocked everybody who disagreed with them, right? Then they moved to deny, right? There's no problems with the Dogman. It is fine, right? That's the deny stage.
Yeah.
Chip Zdarsky just pushed the needle here to blame others. So we're going up the scale now to where it maybe somebody might actually make a solution at some point. And I'm going to say like Eric July and the crowdfunders around us and Ethan Van Sciver, myself, we are actually the solution. It's go away from the big corporations. But the big corporations might find a solution at some point anyway because they're going to lose so much money. But they're at blame others now. And what Chip Zdarsky said,
we're at the problem. We are nowhere to assume responsibility.
No, we're not. We're not even close to it. Yeah.
No.
And by the way, it might loop back to deny again. It's gonna circle around here for a while. But Chip Zdarsky said that hey, Derail Gaming, he said that the problem with the comic book industry is that COVID made it so people got out of the habit of going to comic book stores, and that's why comics are not selling well now. Well, that really doesn't track because we're so many years past COVID at this point.
And people, the manga went up, so they were buying.
Manga went up, Dogman went up.
Yeah.
So the problem is obviously not that. The problem is the content that Marvel and DC and their little satellites are producing.
Buy new Marvel and DC?
I do, just to review on the channel.
Yeah, I guess you have to. Okay.
And so
I played Cold Turkey in 2015.
Oh,
I got tired of my beloved comics being disrespected.
What I do is I get some crappy book like Amazing Spider-Man here, and it's so bad. And then I review it on my channel, and then I hold it up on my live streams, and I start yelling at the comic book. And then I ask people if they'll give me super chats to pay for the comic book, and if they do, I'll tear it up and scream at the comic book on stream. And then they do. Oh yeah, 100%. So
guys,
so that's what I do. Yeah.
if you guys super chat me $10,000, I'll say the N word. How's that?
Wow, it's a good deal. So I think I did it for $100. So I've got a lower level, and I did say it for everybody. So, but that's kind of where it's at. Yeah.
Like the final week of my new comic book store, 2 locations.
Wow.
They don't have, and I went to the local comic store right over here. They have a sign: buy 10 comics, get 5 comics free.
Yeah, I saw that picture when you posted it. That was crazy.
I felt so bad. I couldn't even find 10 comics that I wanted.
Oof.
Yeah,
I buy those. So I get that. I actually have been I got Ultimate Spider-Man, which I actually find
I heard it's
reasonable.
Pretty good. People that I trust are telling me that it's excellent. And you know what?
I'm not going to go as far as excellent. I'm going to go as far as pretty good. Yeah.
Well,
we'll see how it goes.
The bar has been, we are desperate, but it's a return to normal comics. It's Spider-Man as an adventure, as a tough guy. It's kind of true. Stop going to the week because of lockdowns, but there's no
right.
I hate to say it because I lived in Queens and it's impossible to park. That I've been going to the discount comic book service for 10 years to buy comics. So
I switched over to that too. It's just not, especially like if I'm gonna make review videos and all that, I need to get them at a discount.
Yeah. I feel bad.
Yeah.
But there was no local comic book stores by me.
And then I'm getting the other stuff I'm getting is the G.I. Joe and Transformers.
Everybody's raving about them too.
Those, by the way, I would say those are better than Ultimate Spider-Man. So those are, I would put those on the excellent scale. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Marvel and DC still have books coming out. You just can't depend on like you used to. Cam and I were talking that there's no long runs. Like a creator, you can't just like Chris Claremont. What did he write? The X-Men for 22 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you can't build a rapport or have a long-term story anymore in a comic book. Like, you know, if they hired me to write the Fantastic Four, I'm just going to rush to tell my little story because there's no guarantee that I'll be there.
I don't know about that. I mean, they do to some people because if you look at like Zeb Wells has been on Amazing Spider-Man now for 43 issues. So that's,
Okay.
I mean, you know, that's not
And again,
terrible. I mean, it's awful. It's not readable, but he has been on it for 43 issues. And I mean,
it's been shitty for a long time, guys. That's not a selling point, John.
So that, I mean, 40 something issues is 4 years. So, you know, I mean, that's respectable, I'd say. You know, you don't really get the 100, 200, 300 issue runs these days, but you know, 40, 50 issues is you can tell a decent story if you can tell a decent story. I think the problem is that none of these people can tell a decent story at the end of the day.
I remember my wife used to tease me because I took her to, you know, we lived in Queens, New York, so we would go to the New York Comic Con every year. And believe it or not, she actually loved it. You know, she had a good time. We saw some old creators, you know, and she loves listening to the stories from these old timers. And Dan Slott was there. He just happened to be standing next to me. And at this time, he was writing The Thing. You know, this was before She-Hulk, before Spider-Man. You know, he was up and coming. And I geeked out. And we talked and we hit it off. You know, we were like fast friends. And then a couple of months later, I saw him at the Big Apple Con. And he had just started doing She-Hulk. And he was talking about like legalities, like superhero legal stuff and how much fun you would have. And I was literally sitting at the table for like 2 hours and we were bouncing ideas of like, wouldn't it be funny if a regular person is suing that he couldn't get into the Xavier school because he was discriminated against as not being a mutant, you know, and then I get on Twitter and I'm blocked by this crazy person, you know, me and him, like I think he would recognize me as a person and now, you know, you can't come on my channel because I have no way to reach out to him because I'm pre-blocked because I follow you or EVS or somebody, you know.
Sad. Yeah.
You know, I just find, how does that get you more customers? My wife used to say I was the Dan Slott fanboy, and now, you know,
it's you know, I really like I'm on that same page. I actually really like Dan Slott's writing for the most part.
Right. I know Spider-Man I thought was I knew it wasn't going to be the new way. It was just a little
right.
You know what they do in comic books. The black suit doesn't last that long. You come back to the red suit,
right?
Electra's not Daredevil.
That was pretty interesting, and his Fantastic Four run was pretty good too. And I didn't read his Iron Man stint, but I don't think anybody did.
Know he wrote it.
But you know, he's got some talent. He's just a goober of a person. What we've seen in the comic industry, we've seen like. People with talent existed, and then there were awesome people who were people with talent, like in the 80s, and like, you know, you get the Tom DeFalcos, the Chuck Dixons, who are just like, they're talented and they're cool people. Right. Then like as the comic nerddom progressed, you like the talented people became goobers. So there were talented people who were goobers through like the you know, Dan Slott is a great example, or let's say who's another, J. Michael Straczynski is another goober who's talented.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, he's a big goober. Yeah,
he's a good writer too. I never interacted with him.
Big Trump deranged crazy person. Yeah. And so that's the he's literally an Aspie though. Like, so I give him a bit of a pass because, you know, what can you do? And so he is a goober. But now we're getting to the point where there's people with no talent and they're goobers. Like it's like the pinnacle of the. It's like, why would I support you? And that's what Marvel and DC is. It's the Tim Sheridan guy.
You're allowed to say Vita Ayala.
Vita Ayala, Tim Sheridan, Mags Visaggio. They're all talentless hacks who are just lousy people. Also,
would you?
So it's
all seriousness right now. Let's just say that John Delarose, whatever, you make $1 million, you sell you Bitcoin, you start a comic book. Would you hire Mags Visaggio?
Maybe just for the lulz, because it's funny. Like that's the thing. Like you can't count out me doing something just because it's funny. Like
all right. But
that's the thing.
All I could think of is it's only a matter of time before Mags turns on you. You know,
that's true. Well, you saw Mags
take the hand of everybody that fed them on the way out. You know.
Oh, I know. Oh my gosh, it's really funny. But that's where the comic book industry is in a nutshell right now.
Right. Right.
And Marvel, Marvel's got a couple writers they've hired that are okay. Like Jonathan Hickman is talented. And the reason I'm saying Ultimate Spider-Man is not great, it's such a slow. The first issue had zero action, and it's
That's John Hickman.
John Hickman is Jonathan Hickman.
I really like him, but I just want to go like, come on, light a fire, let's get going. And I do. This is going to be mean, and I don't mean to be. I do think there's like some legitimate Asperger's or autism, like legitimate. Not how everybody says I'm autistic these days, like it's a badge of honor. I do think that there's a little. Probably. So I don't think he never finishes what he starts.
That's also true. That's the main problem is you get these setups, and the setups in the world building are beautiful, and then it's like it doesn't pay off.
And it's like, come on.
It's over and over. Like his Fantastic Four run, they always say is the best, but
it's really good.
Again, he set something up, and it really wasn't done. And then Matt Fraction kind of took it over, and it really wasn't as good, and it didn't really resolve itself. Same with the X-Men. Like his setup with the House of X, Powers of X. When I read that trade, I was like, this is cool. And then I got into it, and it didn't go anywhere. And then he left. And so I'm kind of expecting the same thing to happen with Ultimate Spider-Man here, where he's got this whole deal.
A year or two earlier.
And right now, nothing's happening. And Jonathan Hickman is the classic. They always say wait for trade. I say he's a wait for omnibus. So you don't even want to wait for the trade with him because it's like,
that's kind of funny. Wait for the I was just looking at his comic East of West, and I gave it 20 issues. I'm like, when's anything going to happen? 20 issues is a lot of money. It's 20 issues of world building, which,
At least it's good world building, though. And that's better than some people can do.
Well,
to be fair.
I'm writing my own comic, Heroic Tales, and I sent the script off to people that I trust. And one of the best criticism I ever got was, this is all world building, and there's no character story. And it really kicked me in the teeth. I stopped, rewrote my script, and it was the best advice I ever got. So, you know what I mean? Sometimes you just got to take a little bit of criticism. And I think that's the problem in Marvel is there's no editors pulling the reins on these people and being like, move this along, or stop this. This is no good. I think what are the editors do? What are the editors doing at Marvel in these days? Well,
they don't have vision anymore, and that's one thing that editorial used to have is like, we're going to have this line direction where it's kind of going here, and they'd corral the writers into that sort of thing, and you'd get some interesting, and that's why you got those storylines that like really progress these characters, and they'd really pull that out of the writers. These days, there's no vision. The writers are all off in tangents. Not like it's a Marvel universe, but like one book to the next doesn't feel the same, doesn't feel like it's in the same universe. So it really doesn't. There's nothing there. I guess they're glorified typo checkers who then hire people to check their diversity boxes too, right?
Are you old enough to remember the Jim Shooter years?
Absolutely, yeah.
You have a baby face. I can't figure out your age.
I was a little child then, but my main thing I collect is the Marvel Epic collection. So I've been reading a lot of the 70s and 80s stuff, which are just like it blows everything off the doors of what comes later.
He will come on my channel. It's just a matter of when. So
cool.
Got that. But anyway. This was a tyrant who came in and controlled Marvel, said, we're not doing this, we're tight. And they all hated him for this. And I always chalked it down to was before that, they had all a bunch of hippies running around controlling Marvel. They were all nice guys, but Jim Shooter, I think he pulled him out of bankruptcy. He laid down, and they all hate him for that. And I think that's why like the father figures in Marvel comics are always getting destroyed. Like,
yep.
I think they take out their hatred of Daddy on Jim Shooter and then make Reed Richards a prick.
That's true.
But anyway, I'm babbling. So there's no universe anymore. Yeah, there's no editorial.
True.
Yep. Yeah, Marcus is the same age as me. I don't know. Being a janitor requires some. You got to show up to work. You got to punch in, and you got to do your job on time. I don't know if
a lot of these people don't like to work. You got to remember that's kind of the whole problem is they just want to. Send me money on Cash App, please.
Right.
Can't pay my rent. Yeah.
Do you listen to your boy Zach at all? Diversity in Comics.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who doesn't in this space?
I got to say, that was like the ray of light. I was like getting really like comics are terrible, and then I don't know what it was, if the algorithm, whatever, but I caught on to him at the beginning, and at that time I was I was an electrician working for Marvel Comics. So I was like sending him
Really?
I was sending him like little inside story. In one of his early videos, he talks about, oh yeah, I got an electrician over there who's telling me the stories. But I was splicing wires, and they had an editorial meeting, and the editors were getting the continuity wrong, and they were talking about like the characters. They didn't know that Black Panther debuted in Fantastic Four. They didn't know what year, and I was like dying. Like, can I get off this ladder and correct them without getting fired? And I turned on the side of I need a job, and I kept my mouth shut.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. His Secret Wars 2 with the new
yeah.
Yeah.
That was a those are some rough reads right there. One Secret Wars 2 really was just a complete disaster. And New Universe, I really wanted to like it. I went and picked up some of those books. They've wisely not recollected those. That's like one of the few things they haven't collected for Marvel at this point, and just doesn't work. Yeah.
The problem with the New Universe was they said we want to make another line. Who's got an idea? And then people, how about this? Rather than the guy who had a burning desire and a burning, you know what I mean? Like, so they just spun their wheels, kind of like, okay, how about a superpowered football team? Okay, go write that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and I really wanted to like that too, because that was Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz, who is my favorite creative team. They did, of course, the Eric
M2.
Masterson Thor, and they did the MC2 with the Spider-Girl stuff. And so those two runs are just gold.
Absolutely great.
And so I was like, wow, they did this like football thing. Let me open it, and then it's like unreadable. Like,
Incorporated.
How did that happen? It's like, yeah.
Comico was an amazing comic company. Unfortunately, the owner, I think he got himself an offer he couldn't refuse, and that was the end of that company.
Nice.
And I think there was a problem. Yeah, DC was really catchy. Yeah, DC was doing pretty good. I don't know. I just think it's a shame because, like jazz music, comics are one of the only few all-American art forms that is recognized all over the world. Everybody knows Superman. Everybody knows Spider-Man. Hell, everybody even knows Captain America. And we can't sell a freaking comic book. My nieces and nephews don't read comics, but they read manga.
Yeah.
20 years ago, even the cool kids liked comics. Everybody liked a comic book. They might not have been obsessive about it like me. I remember working in Manhattan, and there's a Fantastic Four billboard for the first Fantastic Four movie. And then, there's a Superman billboard. And I'm like, look at this. There's billboards in Times Squares right now. And biggest tourist trap. And the comic book stores are empty. What's going on? What is going on? The Super Bowl. Remember they had the first Hulk teaser trailer during the Super Bowl with
yes.
Eric Bana? During the Super Bowl, they're paying $1 million a second for a commercial, and Marvel can't get anybody to go into a comic book store. I just really wonder what the hell's going on. Like, is this incompetence or is this by design? I have no idea. I'm going to say incompetence.
I think it's mostly incompetence, and I think they're given a corporate budget, and I think their directive really is to like, hey, you can bring in a Jonathan Hickman, but the rest of the line of the Ultimate Universe needs to be some cheap people, and we'll just sell some books off Jonathan Hickman's name because it's tied to that, right? And I think that's kind of I think that's the laziness that's in there. Now they've got Brian Hitch doing Black Panther, which I'm sure is fine. And Brian Hitch is a fine writer. He hasn't given any problems. But the Peach Momoko stuff, like, it reeks of laziness. Like, it's literally a book about her in high school, but she calls it X-Men. Okay, cool. Hey, Timothy, how you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah. I saw that Don't Call Me Starfire. And then I saw the woman who actually
who just looks exactly like that, right?
Yeah. You're supposed to hide it a little bit, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I've never really written a character that like I identify with in any of my books. So that's like I tend to like, I don't know. I just like I pick like her. Obviously I don't identify with her. Yeah, no, obviously not. I'm just like I was this was intentional because of the redhead erasures in
Who's the artist?
This is Aaron Lopresti on the cover. It's
a
gal who she is anonymous interiors. She goes by Miss Crimson, and you might recognize the style a little bit as a like 4000 AD kind of style. And she comes from the mainstream comic industry. And I don't, but she's staying anonymous so she can keep her contacts and things like that. But does a really good job. But that's what we did. We really wanted to just have a redhead because of the redhead erasures. That was as we talked about what's our character going to be. That was like our first thought. And then number two was like, well, they're making all the chicks these days have these like flat chest uniboobs. So we're going to make sure she's very curvy too. Right.
What's wrong with sex appeal?
And so like we're just that was what our talk in designing the characters is, just being subversive to everything that the mainstream is doing and doing just the pure opposite of that. So while Hickman's books might be and Bendis's books might all be pages of spam talking, this is just pages of action, right? And so like that's kind of how we formulated this universe to start. And it's not really about me as a character. Now I did throw in, so Ms. Crimson as the artist. She is a woman too, which is interesting. So they can't misogyny. They can't do that here. But so she's like really into gardening, for example, homesteader gardener type too. And so I made the character have a gardening hobby just because of that, because I thought that was funny. But it's but I'm writing it, so it wasn't her writing that deal. But
I did. Do you mind if I share something for a second?
Sure.
You see this character? This is my character, the patriarch. And I was like, as a joke, I said I want to make up a character, and the character is going to be called the patriarch.
Badass.
And he's going to be everything that all the SJWs hate. And then I fell in love with the character.
He's got the Giga Chad beard too. Like
so it's obviously my self-insert because this is exactly what I look like, right?
Yes.
But you see that this is his family. He homesteads. He goes home at night, and this the woman in the purple or the pink is his wife. She's all burnt up for, I'm not going to spoil why. And he has 7 children, and he homeschools. He's very religious. He doesn't cheat. He's
a hero.
Masculine,
he's a hero.
That's he's everything that So is it myself? No, it's my father. There were 7 kids in my family.
Aww,
you know what I mean?
That's sweet.
So I want to make a comic book that is everything that's missing right now. So yes, you laugh, but he does have the male gaze. He has increased senses, so he's always keeping track of his family, even though he's miles away.
That's funny.
So I didn't even realize it at the time, but yes, one of his powers is the male gaze. I don't know. So let me ask you, well, you're doing crowdfunding and you're delivering your comics yourself, right?
Yeah. So I've done 12 full graphic novels as crowdfunds. I've done, on top of those 12, I've had 3 single issues of just things that didn't fit into my graphic novels I've done. And I've got a couple that I'm not really doing in crowdfunds. I've got a Subscribestar, and I just do pages that I build there too. And so I've got a lot of comics out. I've got a full superhero universe. I've got a science fiction comic universe. I've got this 1800 steampunk deal, which is still in progress. That's such a good story. I just the artist has produced 2 issues in 3 years, so I don't talk about it much. But sometimes that's what happens, because a lot of people are doing this part time, and when we're trying to build something here. So my goal is to have a little something for everybody genre wise. And that kind of will hopefully you'll lead into it. Maybe you read Overmind, for example, and then you're like, okay, I trust that John writes a competent story. So I'm happy to be surprised with where he takes me next. And that's kind of my goal, right?
That's like Chuck Dixon. He writes a bunch of things. I pretty much trust Chuck, Mike Barron, this, I'm more of a story guy. So if I see that the story is good, I'll follow them around. Like artists, I'm like, okay, but I don't like that, right? You know what I mean? So I'm a story guy. So you deliver, you fulfill everything yourself. I'm saying the wrong words.
Yes.
Okay. I was just curious about that because.
Yep, I pack them all, ship them myself, have everything sent to my garage, and that's the deal. So yeah, I know.
You do an actual diversity over here. Yeah,
I talk about diversity in storytelling and diversity in characters should be different things. Like I've got Overmind. This is my female character, and I've got the Cosmic Warrior. There's a male character, and they're in very 2 different tracks of stories too. Like this is very much a John Carter style Princess of Mars kind of story, and this is very much like a Space Marine kind of shoot 'em up kind of story, a lot more. And that's that. I try to make the stories different so that I don't, honestly, like the key to writing. I was told this by a master who sells his books on Amazon, hundreds of thousands of books, and he says the key to writing is actually to write the same story over and over again, change the window dressing a little bit so that your audience who expects something, you deliver that every time, and then that builds your base. And I reject that, even though that is, I know as a business model that is the correct way to sell things. If you look at what people like, they like their little boxes that they're in for certain genres and things like that. And I just refuse to do it. I get the itch to just tell a different story, and I don't want to repeat myself because I find it boring.
Do you read the Dresden Files at all?
I've read the first book, yes,
right,
but Jim Butcher's a excellent writer. But yes,
because I follow his books and I'm like, okay, it's a formula, and then he broke the formula, and then I was pissed.
And that's the thing. If you do that, if you get into that like setup where it is a formula, that's the problem you're going to face too. So I'm really hoping that as this builds, as it does, that people would just be like, okay, John, like like we're on for the ride, and you can be creative, because this is art. This is supposed to be art. It's not, I'm not trying to.
What is All Eyes on
Ashley? Make a hot dog. So all right, All Eyes on Ashley is a book about a guy who needs to is trying to get with a hot chick at the office named Ashley, and it is so this is yeah, this is my right. No, I've got a beautiful girlfriend who I don't need this kind of, but I pulled it up right here so you can kind of see some of the imagery on it. And so there's the guy in the back right there, and there's
nice
Ashley.
Assets on Ashley.
So, yeah, Ashley's looking good. And she's got all the attention in the world, so he has to figure out what he needs to do to like get her attention. He's like, well, I better be a muscle-bound guy with a Bugatti or something, otherwise I've got no chance. And his buddy here kind of steers him in the wrong direction, and so they go on this kind of wild goose chase on following people online that maybe are not the best. But he's got to become his own man in order to get her attention. That's kind of like it's layered. So it's like it's really a message to men, like, stop simping. It's really a message to men, like, really improve yourselves. And it is a romance, like there's no supernatural crap in it or anything like that, because I wanted to write a book without that. Yeah. But at the same time, there's a lot of action in this too. And I told people in my Discord today, like, don't be afraid of it, because a lot of people have told me, oh, maybe this isn't for me because it's it's a romance, because guys have been told that romance is not manly, which is retarded. But if you look at your favorite superhero books, you love your favorite superhero books because of the romance.
We've been buying Rogue and Gambit comics for 30, 40 years.
That's the whole deal. That's why you love that. I mean, but that's another storyline. So I was like, I told some people today, I said, maybe I'll just re-release this and I'll title it The Way of the Ninja. And I'll put the guy on the cover in like ninja gi, and he's protecting her, and she's like, cradling his leg like it's Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia. And I'll do it, and I'll just re-release it like that. And part of what I want to show, like, and why I talk about it like this, is marketing, like, really does like color your expectations of things. And I want to tell you right now, if you're backing this, you're not going to get some boring talking head book like you expect here. There's a ton of action in this book, believe it or not, and it's a lot of fun. We really crushed it on the art level, as you could see. On the story level, it's pretty deep for what it is, and it's multifaceted and multi-layered. Like, I'm super proud of this. It should have 1,000 backers based on how good it is. I guarantee. I just checked this out before it's gone, for real. Yeah.
And this is live right now.
Yeah.
Cool.
18 hours left. So this is it. This is the last day.
Oh.
Satara Gaming there is the letterer on the book. So he's actually read it. So he says it's a really good story, very entertaining, with feel-good story and some great comedic action. Plus, there's some underdog sweetness to it too. And there he goes. And the art is flat out amazing. See, he sold it better than I can. I got too verbose there because I wanted to go on my spiel.
You and me both. Explain something succinctly. I'll spend 40 minutes explaining.
That's right. So that's good. Spoiler. Yes, that's the twist. Yes. Hey Drake, how you doing? So cool. Yeah, definitely check this out. We did get we got a backer over the course of the stream, so thank you.
Oh, cool. Let me put
yeah.
your there you go. You put your link back up. That's so. I wanted to ask you too, since what did you say? You have 18 campaigns, fulfilled campaign, or 8?
Yeah, I've done 18 campaigns for 12 graphic novels
Wow.
and 3 different books. So single issue comics too. So and then one of my campaigns was for a hardcover edition of some of my novels, and then I did a couple like second chancey campaigns also.
Okay.
Daniela Acera is my pen name. And the reason I did this is because I wanted to run a little experiment on Kickstarter and see if they were like deprioritizing my name on my campaigns and stuff like that. So I made a second account that wasn't me, just because I wanted to make sure I wasn't any problems. And what's interesting about this experiment is actually on here I've run the metrics, because I've got a metric thing that I run in the background. 75% of the backers are new backers to me. So 75% of the people here have not read my books before, which is very, very interesting. And what I do at the end of this, which is going to be a lot of fun, is I usually run a thing called Backer Kit, and Backer Kit ties into Kickstarter. And so let me see.
Yeah, Backer Kit is where you go to fill out your surveys, and they sort all your information so they know what everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I do a lot of board games on Kickstarter.
You do, so you get a lot of that. So one, it's great for fulfillment, by the way, because it sorts the package types for me and makes it really easy. Yeah. But this is the other thing it does. So I'm pulling up my old campaign. I don't even think this is open, so don't try to click on this. But there's my campaign. So by the way, this campaign made $20,000, but once it got onto Backer Kit, it made another $10,000. So and the reason is people go in, and I have copies of all my catalog on here. And so all these people who are new readers to me from this campaign, which 75% of them are now because I didn't use my name, and because it's a romance, again, like I'm associated with sci-fi and right-wing stuff. So this Daniela Acera name is not associated with that. Makes it a lot easier. But now all these people will go in here and they'll be like, oh, I like this book, All Eyes on Ashley. Maybe I'll go in and check out. And as I check out, I'll grab Flying Sparks also. And so I'm going to expose this 75% of people, which is going to be probably 100 people by the time the campaign's over, to all of my old back catalog of books, and hopefully make them turn into super fans. That's the goal.
Are you Kickstarter exclusive? Is that your only
right now? So I do Kickstarter pretty much only right now. I've done a couple on Fund My Comic. Indiegogo's got me banned. And so my options are limited.
Problems with Indiegogo.
Yeah, they banned me a couple years ago. Fund My Comic, I like Luke Stone a lot, and I like it over there, but there's no foot traffic over there. But then I have my own web store too. So if you delarose.com, I have a store on there. And so if you want to buy, like, say, my other books, if somebody like I just go to here right here. So somebody mentioned like Overmind or whatever. You can go down, and I've got Overmind on here, just like, what I've got it in my garage. I ship it out tonight, and you can check out my books that way as well. And I've got all my comics and all my novels, and I've got some of them on digital too, so that you can, Amazon makes me go exclusive for the novels, but I've got all of my comics on here, and I've got 2 novels. Actually, this Demon's Eye is only on my web store. So this is like, I tried to have an exclusive on here. And then The Roles We Play is another romance novel that I wrote that really is not out anywhere else too. So yeah, cool.
I was going to ask you, because I'm probably going to put my comic on Fund My Comic again. Yeah, I like Luke. I've had him on the channel.
What I would do, to be honest, if I were you, is do that, just because Luke's a great guy and it's worth supporting. But put it on Kickstarter too, just because you'll get random eyeballs. Right?
I plan on. Yeah. I'm going to do Fund My Comic exclusively 2 months, close it down. Indiegogo 2 months, close it down. Kickstarter 2 months, close it down. And my idea is to have an exclusive cover for each of the different formats.
Awesome, that's cool.
Just getting different artists to coordinate and give actual times is like herding cats. So That's what's holding me up from launching right now. I'm not going to mention names. I don't want to blame anybody, but
yeah,
I went to the hospital. You can't be mad at that.
I totally understand that.
You know what I mean? So
I try not to do that too much. Like setting up too many different websites and campaigns. I could, it's pretty time consuming to do that, as you're probably becoming aware. And so it's like I try to just do a Kickstarter for a month. I wait for the printer to come in, and then I close it off and move on to the next one, because I've got, I try to do 3 to 4 graphic novels a year if I can.
Yeah.
Last year I slowed down a little bit, and of course, Fandom Pulse is taking up my time pretty bad right now too.
We didn't talk about Fandom Pulse. Tell us about Fandom Pulse. Oh, let me ask you one question then before you go. Do you recommend doing one platform at a time? Because I see some people are doing Fund My Comic and Indiegogo. To me, that would be like competing against yourself. What do you think? And then we'll talk about Fandom Pulse.
Yes and no. So, like, the way Fund My Comic and Indiegogo both have like flexible options, right? So you don't necessarily have to totally fund on there. But Kickstarter is all or nothing. So I would direct people to Kickstarter, at least so you can get that goal filled on Kickstarter, so that but running the other two at the same time, like, I mean, it depends on how fast you want to get your book out. If you want to leave it open for a year, like, I mean, the way you're doing it's fine. If you really want to get it out, like, then yeah, I mean, and get excited about a next book. I'd run them at the same time. So I have ran them at the same time in the past, when I was on Indiegogo before I was banned. But at the same time though, it's like there's diminishing returns. So it's like I would rather just be on one platform, and I'm going to be on the one, always on the one with the most foot traffic of random people who might discover my books until they ban me, and then I'll move on to the next one. So yeah.
Do you feel these platforms, do they promote you, or is it up to you to promote? Like I'm of the opinion nobody's going to help me but me. So to me, maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm silly, but I don't think Indiegogo is going to promote me. I've been hearing nothing but shadow bans. I really don't think Kickstarter is going to promote me.
The shadow banning is an Indiegogo thing.
Right. That's an Indiegogo exclusive, shadow banning.
Kickstarter is not doing that. So Kickstarter, I'm going to log in and I'm going to show you some of the back. Let me make sure I don't show the wrong data first, but I'm going to show you some of the data on, because Kickstarter actually tells you in the background. Let's see. Let's make sure I got the right stuff. Where things come from. So if you look on Kickstarter, if you go into your dashboard when you're on here, we can tell you right now how things go. Okay. So the top my top monetary win here is YouTube.com. So people are buying from YouTube, whether it's from this channel or from my channel or from other channels I've gone on. Most people have just been linked from YouTube. The second most is Watch Project Launched. So when I made my little like coming soon, people who clicked on that then bought it second most.
Okay.
And so direct traffic, no refer information, that's usually like probably my mailing list is what that would be. So those are the top three. So that's 45% of my backers is my promotion. Kickstarter search, that means people searched All Eyes on Ashley. That means they're probably searching the name for me also.
Okay, so they already knew you.
55%
Kickstarter and look for you. Okay, all right.
Advanced discovery. Now this is Kickstarter random people finding it via the comic thing. Five of them. So 5% already just came from Kickstarter. I don't know what this is.
Custom? So what is advanced discovery means? They back something else and they say, I still want to buy something.
It means they went into the comic category and searched and just like scrolled through.
So they came at you cold.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Kickstarter internal. This is also like just people searching on Kickstarter and randomly finding it. Another 7 backers. So I'm at almost 10% of that. Kickstarter emailed people who followed the project, which could have come from Kickstarter also. So that's, another 8 backers. So we're at about 11% on that.
All right.
People searched on Google. That's me, obviously. Recommendations, Discover, again, is another 2%. We're at 13%. Comic books Discover, 14%. Discovery category news, 15%. Discovery news. So yeah, so I'm at about So about 15% of my backers on this project came from random Kickstarter. And so I would not have that. I would be down 15% of sales on this if I was just not on Kickstarter, and that's a good chunk. So
Yeah,
it's a good
15
chunk.
cents. 15 cents, 15%. Okay. You know, this
Yeah.
is all new to me. And of course, yeah, I can't help but be nervous, and
Yeah.
who wants to back something, create a website for something, and then do all this work and then find out you shadow banned or blocked or whatever. So that's why you got so many campaigns. You're doing pretty good. So I might as well ask. So let's go to Fandom Pulse. We didn't even talk about that yet.
Yeah. So Fandom Pulse, like, I saw a need for an explicitly right wing Christian news source in the comic, sci-fi, movies,
Oh, so,
entertainment
so
field.
basically, you wanted Nazi news.
Yeah, that's right. So, yes, and so I'm here to fill that role, and of course, it's not just me. I've got 50 different contributors to the website, and so there's a lot of people who wanted to write and not be censored by a CBR or whatever, and we're doing really well. We're getting about 8 to 10 articles out a day, and it's all over the map: movies, video games, anime, comics, books. Like we're trying with like YouTubers, we're trying to cover everything. And so eventually, like, well, the big boys, the CBRs, the Bleeding Cools, they do 30 or 40 articles a day. So I'm about a third of what they're doing right now. But at this point, like, it's not a revenue thing. We're just trying to get people into the habit of reading here, and then hopefully the revenue grows later to where we can pay some talent and get things going on that level. Right now, I write myself usually 1 to 3 articles a day, and then of course I'm editing some. Drake in the chat is one who's been really helpful on the editing the last week, which thank God, because I've been pretty burnt out, and you helped me survive.
So
Yeah, so
do you have like a outside of comic book job? Like, I'm a construction worker during the day.
Yeah.
At night. So do you work 8 hours doing something else and then you come home and do all this stuff too? Or
not since 2020, but
okay.
Yeah, it's tight. Geez. However, at the same time, it's tight right now. If this year is the make or break really for me.
Well,
so
good. God
we'll
bless
see how
you.
it goes. Yeah. But I'm hoping this picks up. I mean, we had Bounding into Comics in the past, and then they became censorious as they got bought out. And then
I remember Bounding into Comics used to be the one source I followed.
The editor over there quit because they were trying to get access to Disney and were telling him to tone down his opinions. And then I was censored in one of my articles I was writing about the kind of the Whisper Network in comics, and they wouldn't publish it. And so I was like, okay, so if they're going to just not allow me to hit hard against the mainstream comic book industry, I'm out. And so we both quit there. He now works at That Park Place, which is a great publication too. And I wanted him on board with me, but he's a father of a young child, and I can't pay right now, so he needs to have a paying gig. And maybe I'll bring, if this succeeds, I'll pay him. I'll bring him over. But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make this succeed and trying to have this kind of replace what Bounding was before their corporate bought it.
Yeah. The comic book. You remember Toy Fair, and Wizard magazine? Do you remember how much fun they were? Like every month you'd open up these articles, like 25-page articles from Rob Liefeld. You felt like you got to really know these people, and and they would talk trash. They would say stuff, but it was interesting. It was fun and now it's like you click on a CBR News, you know exactly what they're going to say beforehand.
That's right. It's always like, it's usually just the press releases copied and pasted because they're so lazy at those things from the mainstream companies. Now I do a mixture. So it's like I call out the mainstream industry, and I went majorly viral on an X-Men piece, going at Marvel on this. But also, like, when I see cool stuff, like this is a new Farscape Kickstarter which just hit. Did you ever watch Farscape?
No, guys at work bust my chops all the time.
Oh my gosh!
You not watch Farscape?
Super good. Well, this just launched on Kickstarter yesterday, and it's the complete collection. They did a full comic run for 4 years of a continuation after the show, and so they're now doing a full slipcase collection of this, which looks really
Nice.
cool. And so nobody's going to report on this in the mainstream media because they don't really report on Kickstarters. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to report on something nice because I like this, and I would like people to find it too.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to do a mixture of that, and I'm also,
this is what
of course,
comic book journalism should be. That's
right.
And
I'm also hitting, Marvel Comics leaks new X-Men launch will further the feminist agenda. So which of course the mainstream wouldn't talk about. They're never going to say anything negative about Marvel because that's how it goes. So we kind of do that. This is TJ Marquez, who does What's Up with the Age of Indies. So he just reported on a bunch of random indie stuff here. And we've got, like I said, just a little bit of everything. I mean, we got video game news. There's a new Pokemon Legends game. The composer of Final Fantasy is retiring.
Yeah.
There's I know it's kind of sad. There's a lot of stuff out there, which we're trying to just bring you news you're not going to find anywhere else.
I don't know.
It's really cool.
I can't claim to follow everything and know everything that's going on. But do you do like just articles of like new crowdfunding comics? This is self-serving, but like when Heroic Tales goes live, could they be like, oh, these are what's launching this week? Just a nice chronology of independent comics.
Yeah. So like, if you want me to pick it up, just be like, hey, my Kickstarter's launching. Would you write an article on it? And I'll be like, oh, sure, John. And it's kind of like that.
There you go, everybody. There you go, everybody.
So, and I try to, and if I miss you, it's just because I ran out of time. I
did that to Heidi McDonald, and she was basically like, you got to be kidding me.
I really want to be a space for that. Those articles, just so you're aware, like those articles don't get clicks. And so if you are this is just a promotion thing. Right. So if I have an article that's just like John's Longbox has this new comic on Fund My Comic, it's going to get no clicks. If Fabian Nasasia attacks John's Longbox,
absolutely
clicks. And the thing is, like, at that
point,
then
you link to me.
I can link the Kickstarter in that article. It'll do way better than it would if I just wrote it. And now I think it's useful to write up the article anyway of like when you launch one, because it gives you credibility, right? Is what it does. But it's not likely to get you a lot of clicks on that level. So that's we try to keep it balanced as best we can. So yeah. Hopefully we're doing good work.
Unfortunately, I understand that this trash drama stuff catches more clicks. It's just human nature. We all look at car crashes and we all say we hate the rubberneckers, but then we're the rubberneckers, so I understand. As much as I wish it was more comic books talk and less drama, maybe I could get more subscribers overnight if I just started insulting you and bring on the next guest and insult them.
Sure.
Yeah. But I don't want to do, like I said, guys, when Eric July was on, people were mad at me that I didn't trash talk him to his face. I'm like, I'm not going to invite a guy into my house and insult him.
Yeah.
It's
exhausting. It's exhausting to be like that too. It's like, it's like, I don't know. I don't like to fight with people if I don't have to. A lot of people want to fight with me, but like, I'd way rather just be friendly. So
I sometimes succumb to my own madness and fight with people when I realize I'm being exactly what I can't stand. But my wife's looking at me, but I gotta go because I have a comic book team up with RJ and Nick X at 8:30, and I just want to talk to them. I really appreciate it. I could talk to you for another hour or two if you ever want to come back. This was a pleasure. There's a lot of stuff I didn't even bring up yet that I would have loved to talk about.
Let's do it again for sure.
Yeah. And right now you got Kickstarter, All Eyes on Ashley. It looks good. I do like that you're doing other genres. That's pretty commendable. Bring back the romance comic. That used to be the number one thing in comics in the 50s.
It used to be the number one thing in comics. Jack Kirby, and I always show people because I say
Jack Kirby, John Romita showed it. Oh, thank you, John. Sir. John, I needed that. I was in a bad mood.
I always show people
Yep.
that the legends did this, guys. This is the way. And if you want comics not to just be some sweaty nerd culture or whatever, this is how you got to do it.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah. The legends, John Romita, John Buscema, Jack Kirby, they all started on romance comics. We all forget. And it's funny. I started reading them. I people tend to give me comic books. I'm the comic book guy, so like people die. Oh, look at this box of comics. You take them. And I've been reading like these old romance comics for the first time. And like even if I don't particularly like the story, the art is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal art in those. But I'll talk your ear off. I got to get going.
We can talk about it later.
Hit one of my conflict buttons. I appreciate you coming back. Thanks a lot, man. You're a stand-up guy. The Fandom Pulse, check it out if you want some news that's not censored, and I trust you more than I'll trust what's his name? I can't even Rich Johnson, father that I can call. At least he admitted he's not a journalist. So I got that going for me, which is
That's
nice.
Good.
All right. See you, everybody. You just got here. Well, goodbye.
Bye, Jay.